It's a great pleasure to be here in the MIA Conference 2017. I represent my country, India, and it's a pleasure to be the moderator today with the dignitaries on the dais. If you look at the topic, the tax opportunities and challenges in digital economy, it's a most relevant topic today for the tax practitioners and chartered accountants and accountants around the world. Because to understand this, we need to go back to the revolutions that has happened in the world. If you look at before 350,000 years ago, one of the important revolution happened in the world. That was the invention of fire. And subsequently, before 150,000, that is 150,000 years ago, the invention of the language, the communication language was one of the important fundamental thing that has happened, which transformed the human being's life. And in 150,000, that is 150,000 BC, the important development that happened was we moved away from the barter system to the cash system of currency. And also, in the 15th century, one of the important revolution which transformed the entire ecosystem of business was the invention of the wheel. When I talk about the invention of the wheel, the entire transportation which happened, which made the life very easy, that is in the 15th century. That's when the trade started happening in the fast track manner. That's when the evolution of business started. Finally, the most significant and important phase of the human being today started happening in 1994. That is the fag end of the 20th century, the invention of internet. In 1994, when I used to be a kid, I used to ask my dad, how is your life transformed now? He used to say, today sending a letter is no more relevant because the invention of the email started happening, and over a period of time, internet started conquering our lives. And thanks to the top internet companies and the computer companies around the world, digital companies around the world, which transformed the entire ecosystem of digitization and technology. And that's how this actually evolution. And over a period of time, the digital economy started conquering our lives, but the government and the practitioners somewhere down the line missed the wave of this digitization. The call has come finally now, and we are in the very important phase of taxation. Today, the OECD is actually talking about the plans to ensure there is a taxation system in place where the value creation is very difficult to identify, the economic activity is difficult to identify in the digital phase, and digital tax has become one of the important areas which is also the future of the tax practitioner. And if you look at today, the Uberization, the aggregation, and collaboration has become more relevant in the digital economy, and this is actually transforming the entire system of taxation. Before we understand how the digital tax is going to be done in the digital economy, let's understand first what is this digital economy is all about. If you look at the definition goes like this. Digital economy is the result of transformative process brought by information and communication technology, which has made technologies cheaper, more powerful, and widely standardized, improving business process and bolstering innovation process across all sectors of the economy. Today, the wave of digital economy has started because the technology has become affordable. If you remember very well, I would say the father of innovation in the digital phase I owe it to Mr. Steve Jobs. Because when Steve Jobs showed that iPhone, we never believed that one day the smartphone will be there in our hands. Today, the entire ecosystem of taxation is getting shaped because the internet is available on your hand. And this digital economy is playing a major role because the tax authorities have seen that the future of the revenue is going to be from the digital economy, where we have moved from the physical manufacturing to the digital phase. And for information, manufacturing is also not going to be spared. In the days to come, there is an Industry 4.0 development that is happening, where smart factory, smart workforce, agile working, virtual offices, these are going to take place, and it's going to completely revamp the entire ecosystem of factors of production. So, what is a factor of production today will not be the factor of production. The factor of production will undergo a lot of change, and the way we look at the business today will not be the way we look at the business in the future. And today, all the tax amendments, if you look at in the Asia Pacific in particular, and also around the world, The tax amendments are relating to value creation, be it your transfer pricing regulation or be it your GST, which is brought under the brought in various countries. Everything is revolving around the value creation. The challenge today under the digital economy, how do we freeze this value creation? And how do we go about taxing? It should be based on the resident-based taxation or it should be based on the source-based taxation. On one side, it is very hard to understand this digital economy and digitization and digital business. On the other side, the tax authorities are looking at ways to tax this business. And because of this, the tax uncertainty is happening. Not that the businesses are not willing to pay the taxes, the businesses are genuinely wanted to pay tax, but they don't know whether their transaction is taxed or not. And similarly, governments also wanted to impose tax on those transactions where they feel there is a tax leakage. There need to be a consensus, there need to be a discussion, there need to be a deliberation today between the business, that is industry, government and practitioner. That's how we can enable to face through these challenges. And in fact, this topic has been framed in such a way that tax opportunities and challenges in digital economy. When I look at this digital economy, it is clearly an opportunity for practitioner. Many practitioners are facing resistance to change. But my humble recommendation is, this change is a tornado of change. This change has never happened in the past. This change is very important to actually, we should evolve with this change because this is a great opportunity for the practitioner. While I was just discussing with the panelists before we actually entered the session, they were actually throwing light saying that this is a great opportunity for the practitioner because today there is a requirement to digitize our own practice. Even the small and medium practitioners here should look at digitizing your own practice. That's when you can actually provide the services also. The entire thing is moving towards cloud. There's not going to be physical handling and there's no discretion that is going to be involved with the tax officers going forward. In fact, to brief about India, I closely work with the present central government. When I actually interact with the Ministry of Finance, and when I found that our Prime Minister, under the leadership of the Narendra Modi ji, they are looking at bringing robots for tax audits. Can you imagine? That's a transformation India itself is looking at to undergo. And not only that, if you look at the GST that is brought in India, today invoice-wise details are captured. That is no more the data of the business is the data of the business. It is data of the business is the data of the government today. And this is actually becoming a transformative moment in India where invoice-wise details is available with the government. When I talk about invoice-wise detail, every invoice will attract GST on the outward supply. On the inward supply, the businesses are going to take input tax credit. So that means effectively the government has data about the turnover and data about the expenses because on which you are taking input tax credit. That means the government is having the control on the entire data. And because of this, in the future, the sharing of information is going to happen between the direct tax department and indirect tax department. This is the vision that the Indian government has, and every government also is looking at evolving to this level. When this is the kind of a transformation that is going on, there is going to be a lot of amendment, development that is going to happen on the international taxation side. There's going to be developments happening on the domestic taxation side. There is also development that is expected to happen in the indirect taxes, that is primarily in your GST side as well. Last time when I came to Malaysia, I had an interaction with Dr. Subro. In fact, it came in the papers as well. Today, Malaysia is looking at taxing under the GST, that is the digital economy. In the digital economy, the Malaysian government is looking at taxing the foreign players in the platforms, that is internet platforms, and where there is a B2C transaction happening. So this is an important development that's happening in Malaysia. And every country today requires tax revenue. Because whether it is a developed nation or whether it is a developing nation, ultimately tax revenue is important for the socio-economic development. So when this is an agenda of the government, that means we need to take up this call right now, and this is a very exciting phase for the professional. The question is, how are we going to address these challenges? Definitely there are so many challenges under the digital economy. I'm going to discuss that with the panelists here. I will throw what could be the discussion that will be surrounded among the panelists. The overall concerns which I want to discuss with the panelists is the legal uncertainty of taxpayers and tax administrators. Today, most of the tax payers, sometimes they genuinely wanted to pay tax, but they don't know whether their transaction is attracting tax or not. And similarly, tax administrators also sometimes impose tax on arbitrary transaction. For example, in tax transfer pricing, there's a concept of secret comparables. Sometimes the comparables are not available to the assessee or the client, but it is available to the tax authority because they have the access of information. And how are we going to ensure this certainty is going to happen in the digital phase? And two, risk of base erosion and profit shifting. If you look at today, OECD is actually taking up a call, coming out with the action plans under the BEPS to act for this in specific to digital economy. When Pascal Amons was discussing in various forums, he was clearly saying that the OECD is working very aggressively, or rather, they are trying to bring the guidelines guidelines for the purpose of digital economy taxation. So we will discuss about that, and we'll also discuss about the tax jurisdiction, whether the tax should be based on the resident-based, there should be a residence-based taxation, or there should be a source-based taxation, which is we'll try to strike a balance with what is required. Should it be based on residence, or should it be based on source, or it should be based on both? And we'll also discuss about the place of effective management. For a small idea to the practitioners here, it's always the British system which actually, over a period of time, evolved in various countries because of the colonization. We always believe management and control are the two ways in which to determine the existence of the entities in the country. But today, the definition is actually wide expanding. There is a place of effective management, but you actually look at, when you look at the company, it is there in different part of the world. But the effective management happens from different country. So looking at this, how do we freeze? What are the conditions that is required in the phase of the digital economy, which will act as a guidance for us to determine the place of effective management, that is in short called POEM. And the most important thing under the digital economy is the permanent establishment. Today, we are not able to freeze where the entity is. Take, for example, the server. The server may be, today you may do a transaction in India, you may do transaction in Malaysia, you may do transaction in Singapore, but you don't know where the server is, or you don't even want to understand where the server is. The question is, sometimes the servers are located in the low tax jurisdiction. And these companies, the top-notch .com companies who are in the e-commerce, actually pay 12 to 13 times lesser tax than compared to your brick and mortar business. Today, what's happening with the brick and mortar business? We go to the shop, touch and feel there, come back to the e-commerce website, go and buy there. But unfortunate thing is, the brick and mortar business pays more tax compared to the e-commerce companies which are selling. So, and they structure the tax in such a way that it ultimately goes to Bermuda, the profits go to Bermuda. In Bermuda, not only your aircrafts is disappeared, but your profits also get disappeared because of the tax havens. So looking at this point, there is a requirement to understand the concept of permanent establishment. Of course, intellectual properties today, they get parked in Ireland, and there is a lot of things happening under the intellectual property. First of all, we need to understand how the intellectual property acts in the, how do we freeze the definition of intellectual property in the era of digital economy. And the use of data. Today, the government is looking at replacing the manual or the physical verification of the data of the assessees or the clients using the big data analytics. No more the investigation will be conducted based on the discretion. Just because the tax authorities doesn't like you. It's going to be based on data, and it's going to be validated through arithmetics. And this is the vision of all the government around the world. And finally, characterization of payment. How do we characterize the payment in the case of cloud computing? These are some of the things. Of course, there are other challenges also. The Internet of Things is happening. 3D printing is happening. Industry 4.0 is happening. The sharing economy, the use of digital currencies. And the blockchain, which is coming up now. How do we tax this blockchain? Whether it's going to be an opportunity or a challenge, how the government is going to respond, how the taxation is going to be. This is the agenda that we are going to discuss today. These are some of the interesting aspects that we are going to discuss today, which is going to set the tone of the vision for the government. While I was discussing with the panelists, we also have a vision which we are going to discuss in the last phase of our discussion. And we will share that vision. Today, we require a lot of collaboration and discussion among the practitioner, industry, and government. And we need an organization in line with OECD in ASEAN. How do we do that? That also we'll discuss here and set the vision for the future to come. Remember, yes, digital economy is a challenge because at any day, adopting to a challenge or a change is a pain. But remember, behind every pain, there is a gain. And what is the role of a professional? Whenever a professional comes back and talks about the challenges, I always have a perspective. every challenge is an opportunity. And every opportunity is a platform where you can exercise your professional competence. For information, today in Malaysia, 98% of the business is SMP, that is, small and medium enterprises. And when that kind of economy we have, and the role of the SMP practitioners, and in line with the big fours, will act as a game changer for the Malaysian economy. And not only Malaysian economy, ASEAN, because Malaysia is a gateway to the ASEAN region, and ASEAN is going to be the future of the world, where $500 billion business is expected, and we need to work towards that agenda where we set this context today in this session. The final remarks from this takeaway is the future of the profession is inclusion of digitization. As an SME practitioners, are we ready to embrace this change? 2, we have to think tax by thinking in digitized manner. Third important thing, please follow up OECD developments because your domestic taxations are going to be amended based on the OECD developments. That's the vision that every country has. The fourth important takeaway from this session is we have to come out with an ASEAN-specific forum for tax dialogue. In fact, I wanted to give this vision to the MIA, Malaysian Institute of Accountants, that MIA should be the pointer in actually starting this forum. We need to do this with the same set of people here. 3,000 people should have the voice here to bring the issues on the table where we discuss with the tax authorities from ASEAN region, tax practitioner from ASEAN region, and the digital champions who are going to empower you people. We need to have this dialogue in the face of this change. Digitization is going to give opportunities in digital tax, and it's a tornado of change, and we need to evolve on this phase. The wake-up call here is start attending all the training programs of Malaysian Institute of Accountants so that you get empowered in the digital phase. And follow up. Don't forget, I am from India. Follow up all the developments happening in India. We are the best in tax innovation. Tax engineering. Okay, so we are the best in that. Follow up India under the leadership of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A lot of developments happening. Please buy the Indian newspapers also so that you can understand the developments happening. So that I promote India here. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity as we close this session. Thank you. Thanks a lot.